How do you feel talking about all this stuff, being this prominent public figure who's a revered athlete, like...
Less revered now.
Well, not really, not when you kick ass. And then over time, I think a lot of people that demonized you, especially the fans, they realized you were right.
Yeah. I don't think all of them will entirely admit that. But
right. In the back of their head, they know you weren't nearly as nutty as they thought you were.
Let's not forget, Joe Rogan is not speaking to Aaron Rodgers as an objective neutral here.
I'm 48 hours in, and I consulted with a now good friend of mine, Joe Rogan, after he got COVID, and I've been doing a lot of the stuff that he recommended in his podcasts and, on the phone to me.
They bonded over being some of the biggest promoters of misinformation.
I've been able to make a ton of money playing a sport that I'm really good at, and I'm thankful for that. I have a platform. Some people want you to just shut up and throw a football, and that's fine. But I think there has to be certain voices of reason, and many people say I'm an idiot. I'm not smart. I got attacked for my intelligence levels, which is an interesting angle to attack me on. There's a lot of things you can say about me, but that's an interesting angle to go.
A few points, Aaron.
I'm not a MAGA. I've never had any affiliation with anybody associated with that movement.
You say stuff like this.
Help us out. I'm going to take my man RFK Jr.
and simultaneously endorse Robert F. Kennedy Jr. multiple times at that.
Admirer of Robert Kennedy. He's a friend of mine.
Wow. I am a fan of Bobby Kennedy, so I want people to know that. I actually look at him and I think he's one of those, I actually think I have a lot in common with him.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign is getting traction for one reason. He's speaking truth to power.
I believe that his candidacy may serve the purpose of softening Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is for the candidacy and defeat by the man who will clearly be, no matter what the courts do, the Republican nominee for president, Donald J. Trump.
Yet those in the MAGA movement align with him, propel him up, as Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and Michael Flynn have done, and root for his success. Donald Trump won't speak ill of him. He'll speak ill of a garbage can. Either your head is in the gutter or you refuse to admit wrongdoing. I'd go with the latter. ESPN's Mina Kimes spoke on the subject and put it into words far better than I could.
It really drove home what is at stake, or what is the meaningful thing about this story that transcends sports, which is the sort of normalization of conspiracy theories. And I say that not to criticize Rodgers' character or whatever, but really just to kind of criticize the substance of what he was saying, to criticize the sources he was throwing out. I mean, the names that he was bringing up. I don't know, Alex Berenson, for example, the former journalist. So he said his name. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He's a guy who's been consistently wrong, proven wrong about vaccines and their efficacy and their danger. He has been misleading in how he has used studies. I'm sure some of the same studies that Rodgers has read. The authors of those studies have refuted him. You could ask any credible scientist, doctor, public health expert, and they would refute him. But when I was watching Rodgers and he said his name, I wasn't surprised to hear it, because the people who believe the things that I think Rodgers now believes, they always cite the same people. It really is groupthink kind of masquerading as independent thought. And it's not just on the fringes of society. I think, as evidenced by the fact, obviously, that one of our most famous athletes is now believing some of these things. But I think a lot of us have people in our lives who have gone down similar I know I do, rabbit holes, who are sort of tempted by the idea of feeling like they know something that the rest of us don't, who, when they're met with skepticism or criticism, as Rodgers was, and I think this is at the heart of a lot of this, they double down. They're still having these debates while the rest of the world has moved on. And I feel like, the fact that that's not just on the fringes is worth noting, and it's worth always checking those points when they're made and not just laughing them off the way we so often do. Because, I understand that there's this inside baseball media aspects of the story that are interesting to you and others, and there's the rhetoric battle. But to me, when I was watching that, what I felt was at stake was none of that. it's this ongoing devaluation of facts and expertise, and that bothers me.
That's the crux. That's it right there. Still, Rodgers doesn't see it.
There's a lot of people that believe a lot of the things that I believe in that don't have the opportunity to do it, don't have the courage to do it, don't have the platform to do it in. And I feel like I can speak for some of those people and hold the line for some of those people, regardless of what kind of crosshairs that puts me in with certain media members. You know, they want to shut me down on being on McAfee.
It really is quite a treat to see a man be so confidently arrogant to his own actions, truly. It's not about shutting down. It's not about canceling or even dog whistling by saying, hold the line. That was idiotic. It's that he's been wrong so many times and refuses to admit wrongdoing and check himself. Rogan then goes off on big banks, big pharma, you know, the usual on this absolutely terrible show. The quote-unquote canceling of one major cable news host, though.
Because they're the same sponsors. The same people are spending the same money on the same networks. And it has an impact. If it affects your livelihood and affects your future and your ability to do this thing that you love doing, which is hosting a talk show, and you're doing it on a network that is paid for by that money, guess what? That affects you. And if you don't think it affects you, look what they did with the number one guy on TV news, Tucker Carlson. They fired him. He was the number one guy. And they're like, you're getting too crazy.
Yeah, he'd speak on it. And by the way, no, that's not it at all. In the book, Network of Lies, and a write-up via The Guardian as well, ultimately Carlson's escalating toxicity, which included an undercurrent of white supremacy and a penchant for demeaning women and minorities, led Lachlan Murdoch, the then chief executive of Fox Corp, to pull the plug via the book. More, Carlson was believed to have Trump-like hypnotic power over the GOP base. He was believed to be irreplaceable, but that impression was in large part a creation of Carlson's. In truth, Carlson had alienated so many people, instigated so many internal and external scandals, fanned so many flames of ugliness that his firing was inevitable. That's why Fox dropped Carlson. It wasn't one thing, it was everything, wrote the author.
Why did you bring up Jimmy Kimmel when that whole thing was going on?
I had said on the McAfee show before, they had talked about, you know, forever they talked about releasing the Epstein list or whatever. And I had said that on the show, and he had got on his show and called me a tinfoil hat wearing, you know, doofus who is talking about, you know, I thought he had said that I'm an idiot for even thinking there's a list that's out there.
What was he saying you're a doofus for thinking?
That the list was going to get released, I guess.
Once again, for being this bright guy, he cannot and will not admit he missed the point. Kimmel joked about Rodgers' line of UFOs being a distraction from the list being released. Neither party has been proven. Why? Because it's a conspiracy theory from Rodgers, who admits he's full of many, and a comedian cracking hoo-haws with his audience. He's mad about that? I mean, come on. How thin-skinned are you?
I don't know what it was.
That doesn't make any sense. Why would anybody defend the people that apparently were on that list? Because it is a real list.
There was
and
something
it is a real
about
place.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is how misinformation is constantly spread by folks like this. Rodgers then demands people have the same energy for the Jeff Epps stuff with the anti-vax stuff, which is preposterous, but it wouldn't end there, of course.
But instead of, like, if you look at this two-party system and go, who's the lesser of the two evils? I would say, how about let's the two-party system and let's have some more options. And one of them, in my opinion, is RFK, who's phenomenal.
Oh, God, he was so close. Incredibly, there's more BS. Specifically not understanding what is going on with the suits against Donald Trump.
So Trump said he's not going to debate?
He's not debating anybody.
Why? He'd mop the floor.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So he's like, F you, I'm not debating. And also because they keep trying him. They keep bringing him into court. There's all these cases that they keep bringing up. They just lawsuit into oblivion. You know, it's the whole thing is
it
wild.
just emboldens his followers, though.
Yeah, it does. It has the exact opposite effect. I mean, it's a similar sort of playbook in a lot of ways to what they did during the pandemic, where the more they attack him, the more people are like, what the f*** is true?
Yeah.
Because I don't believe you guys anymore. And when you're going after him, I kind of think that you're just doing this because you don't want him to win. And that's banana republic. When you're prosecuting your political opponents, specifically because you don't want your political opponents to be able to make it to the vote, That's Banana Republic.
But that's what we're living in.
Yeah.
All right, I'm tired. I watched it, so you don't have to. You're welcome. Hey, everyone, if there are any stories that you want to bring to our attention, whether it is the local level, collegiate level, professional level, national level, that you think would be worthy of a story and us covering, there are so many hours in a day and only so much we see. Submit them to me. Get at me on Twitter, on Instagram, and TikTok. Send me a DM, send me a tweet, what have you. We appreciate it. Hope you have a great day.